Hello and welcome back to our class, Introduction to Information Technology 2. This is our last meeting, the 13th week of our meeting, and we will conclude this course with the cross platform support. This topic should be the last of our topics because this would cover the entire no code and low code development methods that we discussed earlier as well. And this kind of topics as well, the cross-platform topics, is one of its solution that could also be used for other kinds of information technology based activities, whether it is for your innovative and creative use, or even the sample of common use of information technology to build up programs, application, and also solutions when it comes in terms of daily and society needs in life. So let's start. We will start with the definition of the cross-platform support. So cross-platform means the method to able to create once for almost all of the platform, or at least another platform in the same manner. For example, when we are using information technology or application developments to one target of platforms such as Windows, by using the cross-platform method, we could able to give an output or build it into the other operating system as well, such as iOS, Mac, or even the mobile one in Android, or even other free source or open source operating systems such as Linux. And this is also a solution that could be able to combine the function in certain application or even games. The definition of platform can refer to what the type of the processor or other hardware on which what we call an operating system or OS has. So this kind of things is what mentioned or what define a platform, because whether we choose to develop or use an information technology application in that platform, that means that we are prepared to be in that platform environment. So let me give you a little example. For a common platform is Microsoft Windows OS. This is honestly true because for example, in our country, in Indonesia, almost a lot of the computer PC are run in Microsoft Windows, the first popular operating system in Indonesia. The second one is the Apple, the Macintosh, the other Apple operating system for PC. But in a rare case too, we have a Linux operating system, where it's usually used by experts in IT who love to be able to create and even have innovation in information technology. So this is the common platform where Windows is running on the what they call x86 architecture, and also other well-known desktop platforms such as Linux or Unix and Macintosh, both of which are themselves called a cross-platform operating system. However, this kind of devices such as smartphones are also kind of operating system platforms. Application can be written in this operating system, and it depends on the feature of a particular platform which become their key, or the introduction of their system, where it become one of what they are known for. Either way, this kind of operating system can be run in virtual machine as well. So we can run this kind of operating system based on what we call the virtual machine. For example, we learned about Java platform as well. This is a common platform that usually be run using virtual machine platform, which run on many OS, operating system, and hardware types. Even some of the operating system that big, such as Linux or Macintosh, could be run through this kind of method as well, the virtual machine methods. So here comes the question, why we choose to do cross-platform? So a cross-platform computer, whether it's a product or a system, is a environment or infrastructure that could be used to become one of our productivity activity across multiple types of platform, or what we call also as operating environments. So this kind of method will create different kinds of approach. This for example, will include both hardware and software system to be used in that cross-platform method, or as well as system that involve separate builds for each platform, as well as a huge or wider system that are designed to work the same way, which across multiple kind of platform. So cross-platform is also known as what we call multi-platform or platform independent, where this is important to be used as a solution and alternative to the use of information technology, widely known in the society. Also, in cross-platform method, each device and operating system has its programming interface to deal and to operate with application. So it could manipulate this kind of application in various way that can help IT systems and also to run effectively in many different environments. In this term, the environments to work using your information technology architecture or infrastructure. So one common type of cross-platform system is a virtual product, or a system that will run in a cloud computing or wireless network environment. So using this as a developer, they will look for synergy between a front-end and back-end systems, that usually a common term to define for the development of information technology, where front end focus on the design and the back end focus on the coding itself, and this will connect them remotely through what we know as internet, using the global IP, or global IP connection, or what we know today as the World Wide Web. So a developer will also talk about this kind of cross-platform system that can be used as well as a function for its end user devices, regardless of the manufacturer or any number of vendor supplied. If we are going to use this in business situation, or simply just to share with the community in the internet for the things that we call open source end user environments. So in many cases, this kind of cross platform methods in its operation will not only include working with application programming interfaces, but also any licensing requirements that exist in that operating system or that information technology. So open sources softwares and operating system have decreased the use of the what we call traditional or old software licensing agreement, but many of the operating system and other environment are still provided under uh, old or traditional licenses. This will come both as advantages and also disadvantages because for example, there has been an illegal activity while using this kind of method. For example, when they create ROMs to play games for other operating system, which is supposedly breaks the rules and agreements, and that's why we also need to analyze and try to mitigate this kind of situation, because from what we learn about our ethics, we need to make sure that we are ready, we are good enough to prepare to become a good information technology enthusiast, or even though that it is would be limited in certain cases. Aside from that disadvantages, let's talk first about the benefits of using this cross-platform method. The first one is this kind of cross-platform method is cost effective because we only need to use a single code base, and this is the conclusion of what we learned in the previous topics about the no code and low code development system, where it would be created at a single code base where it will provide what we call cost effectiveness, where in a simple manner it will be very cheap instead of using codes that we need to rewrite every time we change our operating system. And this would be too much hassle and will spend a lot amount of time. And we also will know in using this cross platform method, we will decrease the developmental cost, whether it is for our team's salary or operational cost that requires us to buy new computers, because Windows computer cannot be used to develop Apple programs and so on. So the single type code development will translate all of this kind of various programming languages as per necessity, but it also depends on what kind of software development kit that we use, because not all software development kits will have all the function to cross platform to another operating system or platform. It also have the advantages of the access of its plugins, where it is so versatile and it has a huge amount of plugins that we can use to ensure that our application, our games would be able to be used and known by other people that use another platform easily, and also almost guaranteed to become normally operated in that system, even though that it will not be 100% perfect, but at least we have working programs that we can share through the cross-platform method, because it also add the advantages of what we call easy access to plugins, because the plugins helps to make the development more fluid and change on requirement. This is both good and both bad, because as we know, in information technology, things keep changing. The plugins and application as well keep updating themselves into something new. This is a good thing because we can continue move forward, but the disadvantages is sometimes we need to study more and have the newer experience in using the new application. And also, by this kind of things, it could be bad because when we are going to to develop a system, there are sometimes the plugins, the function is at the expired version that we cannot use to develop an application or games, and this could be much of a hassle, but hopefully it could be a good thing if we try to be sustainable with our use in IT. We could also use the APA or API for short, AP, and it can be used to make a development modification and change easily using this cross-platform method. It could also be treated as reusable codes because we can copy and paste from what we have done in the old project that we have done or we do in the previous project, and it completely eliminates the time consumption that it is utilized to write codes individually, because reusable codes provide an upper hand, and as it does not require repeated development, it does come with a little bit of disadvantages, because as I mentioned earlier about the expired of plugins or application, this would also be true even at the codes itself, because even the programming language, for example we have the PHP programming language, it keep on updating and some of the comments is not used anymore, and when it is not used anymore, we need to change it into something better where it will be a new experience and new learning object for us. And when that code is not used anymore, it would become an error that could become a lot of problem if we don't manage it correctly. It also have the benefits of uniformity because it has a one prominent advantages that would be able to maintain uniformity among multiple platforms. It has the user experience or UE that must be balanced across these trajectories, and inefficiency that we could also find as well. And also, in order to maintain those, we need to make sure that we don't produce unpredictable results. So that's why it is important for us to know about this kind of cross-platform methods before we begin with our software development. The last one of the benefits is the quicker development time, and even if it's just a small application, it won't take more than 5 or 10 minutes as long as we have the code, and sometimes we refer it as templates. We just need to change the name, change the logo, etc., and it's undeniably the benefit of using this single scripting features, where it is quicken the development and also give a solution in terms of products that it would reach the market sometime, and consumer satisfaction would surely be achieved, and hopefully it would become better and better as they progress. Next, let's talk about the implementation of this cross-platform method. So when we are talking about the implementation of the method, we need to make sure first that cross-platform method is required in use in the term of a software, because cross-platform is a software that is designed and should be designed to work in several computing platforms. So it will require the maker of this cross-platform software to be able to use in different platform as well. So that's why it is important for this kind of implementation to know the environment behind those kind of platform. So in order to implement this method in that kind of software, we need to consider the function to be more than one computer architecture or OS. For example, when we are dealing with our games that used to be controlled using mouse and keyboards in if it in PC, but we wanted to port it and use it to cross platform it into smartphones, where smartphone doesn't really use keyboards and mouse, even though that they can, but it is rarely seen that the smartphone using keyboard and mouses, and they usually use touching or keypad, touchscreen kind of operational method. That's why we need to consider this as well. Hopefully, by the use of our software or games development kit or application, this would be easily adaptable. But we also need to know that developing such technology, such product or such software can be a time-consuming task, because different OS have different application programming interfaces API. For example, Linux also use a different API from Windows, so it would be a little bit different, and it would become a problem as well. So software written for one OS operating system may not automatically work on all architecture that OS support. For example, we have what we call OpenOffice.org, which is in 2006, did not natively run on the x64 architecture, where it was came from the processor of AMD. It's also for Intel, where implementing back then is only x86 kind of architecture standard, but by 2012 it was mostly ported to this kind of system. So just because this kind of software is written in a popular programming language such as C++ or C, it doesn't mean it will run on all operating system that supports that language. Or even when it comes with different version of the same OS, we need to make sure this kind of things is mitigated by the choice of our platform to implement cross-platform function. Next, let's talk about the means of designing. We have the type of implementation such as responsive web designs. I will also make it clear here. The testing types of implementation, third parties, libraries, single code base, graceful degradation, multiple code bases, and even the design implementation. So this is what we need to know when we are dealing with the implementation process. So it is needed, and it should be one of the priority to be done before we focus more on the cross-platform process in the future. So let's talk first with the responsive web design. So the web design, or what we call RWD, is a web design approach aimed at crafting the visual layout of sites. It is used to provide an optimal viewing experience to certain devices that is needed in this kind of environment or area. That's why this should be one of the first thing that we taking care of when we are going to implement our application. That's why um, testing, third-party libraries, or other things that we need to do should be finished after the responsive web design process. After that, we also need to make sure that our third-party libraries is added to the collection of our software development kits, where this kind of third-party libraries could be used to simplify cross-platform capability by hiding the complexity of clients' differentiation behind a single unified API at the expense of probably gonna be a vendor lock-in where it would only be used in certain vendor that give us the power of third-party libraries. We also need to focus on our single code base, where the strategy is to having the whole code base into the compliant one single code base, where this technique is conditionally can be done, but this is not available for all platform. But we can also sure that blocks of code can be one of the relevant to certain platform, where it could be made conditionals, so they are only interpreted and compiled when needed, so it won't hit with each other, so it will only compile what we need to compile, not all of the code line that we need to do. After that, we also need to focus on the testing side, because the cross-platform is quite risky to be done without testing. We have to make sure that the application is ready before we release it at the market, and make sure that this kind of testing is could be measured and could be seen as the report of the implementation of cross-platform progress. However, there are several approaches that can be used to target multiple platforms, so we don't have to do the test all over again. So, but all of them result in software that requires substantial manual effort for testing and maintenance. So it also come with disadvantages. We also need to know that in implementation this method, there will be a graceful degradation that attempts to provide the same or similar functionality that to all user and platform, while also diminishing that functionality to a least common denominator for more limited client browsers. And it will come with some difficulty as well, but most case that when this thing happen, we need to move forward with the manual coding that we need to replace when we are going with cross-platform. And in the future, that's why the previous meeting I said that you have to focus on implementing and increasing your capability in programming if you want to focus on this kind of development, because when this degradation happens, you will need your IT and programming skills to solve that. We also need to focus on the multiple code bases that will happen when we do this code cross-platform, because some software is maintained and in what we call distinct code bases for different hardware and OS platform. This will require us to have more effort to maintain the code, but can be a worthwhile where the amount of platform specific code will be high, and it will come also with the advantages of having the amount of platform specific code and also increase in our experience as a programmer. The last one is the design, because unlike the responsive web design that we have to focus as the fundamentals, the designs would be maintaining all of the content, whether it is a user experience, or as the uh, few of our application or softwares or games that we we implement through the cross platform. Because of the competing interests of compatibility and functionality, we need to have a numerous design strategy, and many software systems use layered architecture to overcome this platform dependent code, and by doing that we can restrict this to the upper and lower most layers that would help in the implementation of cross platform. Now let's discuss of the challenge when it comes with implementing cross platform. This first one is when it comes with the testing. The testing cross platform will be considerably more complicated when there will be more and more different platforms that we tend to be one of our target. That's why uh, this kind of different platforms can exhibit slightly different behaviors or subtle bugs that may arise. So experience in programming skill will also help you with this, but if we cannot solve this kinds of problem, you can always go to the community and try to be able to solve it with the community. Even if the community cannot help you, there is always be optional things that we can recruit professionals who can help us with solving these problems. You can connect them easily. Right now we have a freelancer, we have Fiverr, that where those kind of platform can help us to solve this kind of problems. The challenge as well is when the developers are often restricted to using the lowest common denominator. So this kind of challenge come with how they cannot use some features in another platform, where the platform should be meaning that we have to change the way how it looks, or for the safety or the fastest one we just delay that function if that it's not important. That's why this could be also a potential challenge. Hopefully by the future of the technology it would be resolved, but it is needed a kind of development and contribution from all of the cross-platform method softwares to work with each other, also from the programming languages, so they can connect to each other, where for example in programming language that doesn't have its function, in the future it would release the function for that, and it would be better to create cross-platform implementation. There are also challenges where different platforms often have different user interface convention, which this will lead to cross-platform application that do not always accommodate. In this case, we just need to delete it, and when I say delete the function, it means the function for all of the platform, including the main platform, because when this come into play, it is the best practice to wait until it is resolved by updating to the newest technologies that is available. The four problems that might arrive is the scripting language and virtual machine bytecodes that in this case must be translated into native executable code each time they are used, imposing this as a performance penalty. That's why sometimes when we are going to promote our application or games into another operating system, it would decrease their performance, whether it is their speed or their quality of graphics, etc. And this should be come in mind, because the technology that we have today is not entirely perfect for this kind of things, but hopefully the development of this technology would be increasing as it goes. We also have the challenge about the different platforms that would require us to use native packages such formats such as, for example, RPM and MSI. That those are multi-platform those could be solved by using multi-platform installers that has such as install anywhere, where this could be used and solve this problem. But sometimes it is not enough, and back to the solution that I said before, whether we going to the communities to help and look up to resolve this problem, or we can hire an expert in order to finish our challenges in this implementation. The last one is cross-platform execution environments may also suffer from the cross-platform security flaws, where this could breach our users' data and creating a fertile environment for cross-platform malwares that can be potentially a huge risk for the community. So that's why it is important to see the security of our application, and even in games, because in our games development, it would also require some basic user information that would be potentially become a higher risk if it's not maintained properly. That's all the challenge that could arise when we are implementing our cross-platform. Next, let's discuss about the development of mobile app. So, in the cross-platform topics of mobile apps development, we do know that mobile phones has been so much diverse from 10 to 15 years ago. There are so many things that we have to be aware of, because in mobile developments we need to make sure that everything is done correctly, because when we are going to do a cross-platform in mobile apps, we need to make sure that it is in the right place, right time, and the right functions. That's why we need to focus first on how the mobile apps has been developed by today. So the smartphone has variety of operating system, as we know. It was a real challenge for software developers to build a whole new app for each platform they wanted to support. So for example, we have Android and iOS in the higher popularity. We have also Windows back then that sadly has been not quite popular. Even BlackBerry and Symbian and others that usually been used to become one of the operating system that has the exclusivity. This is true for the technology that we use for the purpose of maintaining the security of that object, whether it is a personal, company, government, or even different kind of individuals. So the development process, where it was decades ago, was much harder and more expensive than it is now, because of the cross-platform that we know. So the developers released their apps on the operating system that were most popular among their target audiences, and ignore less popular OS. Symbian, BlackBerry OS, and Windows Phone ultimately proved less popular than this kind of popular operating system, which is iOS and Android. And in fact, to try to operate the cost and the profit doesn't really gonna pay them off. So these platforms died as well. It is the world of mobile operating system is now binary. It's only 1 and 0, and it's only iOS and Androids that has been competing for the last few years. This is also could become our comparison when we are going to focus even using the development traditional ways. Thus, we doesn't use the cross-platform method. In order to develop mobile apps, we also need to think about the idea, design, code, test, and release. This is the simple process of mobile development where we can do, for example, this kind of simulation or process that we can use, such as the native one where we are starting with idea, and then we divide it into design for iOS and for Android, on code it in using Swift if we are going with iOS, and code it with Java, for example, if we are going with an Android. Even though that Android could be used with other programming languages as well, we also need to test it, and even release it to the iOS, to the Android, and even have the support. But by implementing it with the cross-platform method, for example in web, we can have it in one whole combination. So we just do the idea designs at the same time using codes. Even we can combine that using the web programming code such as HTML, CSS, then and JavaScript as the three fundamentals code that we can use. And then that's it. Release it at the same time to the web, and also give it a support. We also can came up with the hybrid situation where the idea, design, and code are combined using the cross-platform supported programming languages. We can test it and release it separately to iOS and to Android. However, in the hybrid situation, we need to release it still at the different types because of the platform is different. They doesn't have uh, Apple Store in Android and vice versa. That's not gonna be changing in the future, except when Google and Apple will try to be merged, but I don't think that is possible. But we will never know. But come back to the hybrid, at the end of the line we still need to have the support capability where we can do it uh, as a combination of that application or games that we have. The next one is the how mobile app development could easier the burden on app developers or game developers, because it can build two versions of their apps and reach the majority of smartphone users worldwide. And even better, they can reach both iOS and Android users with a single cross-platform app. And along with that, we can we as a developer can target smartphones and use it to target other devices as well, such as smartwatches, smart TVs, and other information technologies infrastructure that uh, were able to be used using this cross-platform method. For example, we have native apps as well. We have native apps, what we call classic apps, that is focused only the one platform. They are built specifically for that. Usually developers would build between iOS and Android, and it is completely different programming languages as I mentioned earlier. And the advantages and disadvantages of native apps is, one, for the advantages, they have exceptional performance. Native apps can handle high-end graphics and animation and provide fast response times as well. So this is a good thing when it comes to native apps. It also has the consistency, user experience. where native apps use the same UI elements and gestures as other platform-specific apps. But the disadvantages, they need to hire a separate team for each platform because when we do it, we need to write it again from scratch. So change to share the code base, even though the algorithm would be the same, we still need to consume a lot of time to fix this thing, and it will take twice as long and even more than that. And for other disadvantages, most of the startups won't afford this kind of cost because the number of specialists required and this time invested in app development will affect and cost of the project. Next one is the web apps, where web apps is an application that work in most of the browsers, so they can run particularly in every browser in operating system if they has one. But in common information technology, smartphones and even PCs, I haven't found out one of the operating system that haven't has a browser. Even the game handheld system that we have today have its own browser, even though that it doesn't really good when it's try to be operated, but it still has a web browser that they can use. However, web apps like this have difference between the earlier native apps and the other one, which is the hybrid apps. For starters, web apps use browser to run, and they are usually using the triangle of web code, which is the CSS, HTML5, and JavaScript. Such app redirect the users using what we call URL, and that will be as an address, whether it's an IP or the domain names, and it will offer them the option to install the app. It will also create a bookmark on their page if you wanted it to be running smoothly only on browser, and it will only require a minimum device memory in a lot of cases, but rarely there would be some web application that would require a lot of device memory in order to run it in web. Since this kind of web apps, they will use personal database will be saved in the on the server. That's why you need an internet connection for this. It won't be able to be used to connect to the database if you don't have internet. However, some of the application are local based. As long as you load the data of the application, it should be good to go even the internet is down. The next one is the advantages. So web apps has the advantages of it would be able to be built only for one version for all kind of things that we need them to do. So it can be also be accessed from smartphone, tablets, laptops, and even smart TVs, and no installation needed because some people doesn't really like to install new application because some of the technical issues, compiling reason, and sometimes because the smartphone doesn't have a lot of memories left. But the advantages of web apps is by its limited performance, it doesn't really have a lot of features that can be added, no fancy stuff that we can use as well, and it's heavily calculated because of the direct access to the device main hardware. It also have a lack of a native look and feel since there are only one version of web application and there's no way to adjust these kinds of look because of each platform's design guidelines is different from one to another. As a conclusion, we can say that web app is good to be built because it's fast and cost much less than the native apps. They are also easy to be updated. It is great for a developer that wants to be on the edge of the web development trends, but in general use, web apps could also come with the different disadvantages where it is limited on its performance, but it is a perfect choice for the startup when time to market is crucial and they give a chance to test idea without risking to lose a fortune. And as a cross-platform apps or hybrid apps, we know that this would combine the best of these two worlds where the native, the web application as well, and it could be combined into one real apps that you can install on your smartphone or PCs or even another handheld operating system that you can use. But in most cases, users can tell they are using a native app because it doesn't really show that it is cross-platform apps or hybrid apps. At the same time, there is no need to hire two separated development teams as well because these are built exactly the same. So that's why some of the toolset that we have to develop this is almost identical. One of several JavaScript even frameworks or Google's new Flutter. When it comes to cross-platform apps advantages, we can summary it as this. So the advantages is this kind of cross-platform app, it has high performance, which means that a cross-platform mobile app demonstrates higher performance than a web-based application and is able to meet almost any requirements that it wanted it to be. It's also cost-effective and fast development compared to native app because of its cross-platform app ability and has a significantly shorter development time and lower the cost. The disadvantages is it is quite limited in capabilities because certain platform-specific features can only be accessed with native code. For example, you won't be able to employ augmented reality in a cross-platform app because even though that it is available, the complexity and the process isn't exactly the same. That's why you need to make sure that this kind of issue can be solved by using third-party plugins or including native code in the app. But this will make the application much bigger and you have to do it again and again, which means you have to code it more in the other platform. So this is also the type of cross-platform apps. We have cross-platform application development such as hybrid app development in Ionic or Cordova. We have also native cross-platform mobile app development, which is React Native, Flutter, and native scripts. And we will go it through one by one. So for the hybrid development approach, you can build it with a single mobile application using web technologies, the triangle of code, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to be exact. These technologies run within the browser, such as the WK WebView for iOS and WebView for Android. It's basically the same, and it's usually mentioned as WebView. So this kind of hybrid development using website are embedded to your browser, and you will need something like a wrapper as the function that hold it into an look like an application. So the most popular solution, which is the Cordova and Ionic, both of these wrappers support a variety of plugins that extend the capabilities of the browsers and can access most platform specific features as well. Moreover, if you're using this kind of hybrid app, it it is could be uh, at available in App Store and Google Play Market, because it is basically an application, mobile application, and user will notice that they are using browser, since WebView and WQ WebView perfectly imitate a native application in interface, gesture, and controls. It also have the advantages of updates, because it will update your software and instantly available to the users. You don't need to ask the store to update your apps, because in the common term, if you're updating your application, the version number, etc., you will need to have some verification. For example, in Google, when you update something, they will need to check it, verify it, and it will take some days, even a week, to make sure that the application is available in their Google Play Store. The next one is the cross-platform. So cross-platform native development, it comes on famous platforms such as React platform. So it is based on JavaScript. It is based on JavaScript, where it is recently also released what we call Flutter, and it is based on Dart, where it is a promising technology as well that we can use to implement cross-platform application. So this kind of technologies is an technology that could be used using written code from scratch and use it as tool at the same time. So it doesn't need an intermediary skills and technology to run it on a smartphone. So it's basically click and play, and this React and Flutter as well compiles the code into native code, so it will help the developers to create a specific UI or user interface and ensure this native look and feel like and seen it as a normal application. So that's why it is important to know whether when to choose the hybrid app development, where you need to also make sure that you want to test your startup idea, but you don't have a lot of money to be spent on that, or when you're building a simple application but value the user experience, or whether you have a web app and want to release a mobile version of it. That's why it is important to know before we choose the hybrid application or the cross-platform application, because even though that they are almost the same, there are some cases that they are acting differently. That's why it is important, if this is the one that you want to focus on hybrid, and if you want to focus on the cross-platform, you need to make sure that you care for this kind of things. First one, the user experience, and the second one is the functionality that desired by you as the developer and also your user. So it is completely different when it comes to the execution. So as a conclusion to our last meeting, in order to make a solution based on the cross-platform development, we need to make sure that this is low low cost, but not in terms of its outputs, which it shouldn't be a poor quality uh, softwares, not a poor quality solution that would only startup with no initial investment would choose. But we need to make sure that when we implement and use this kind of method, it is a huge solution based on what we learn about the creative practice, the innovation way, and all of different information technology that we know. That's why it is important for us to even implement it as one of our top priority in academics, and also reminding you about the ethics and how it behave in mobile game development and even the ordinary game development. Because if we say today, for example, and we're going with a startup type like Uber or Pinterest, they use this kind of technology to make sure that it is ready for the society. And for the last message that I want to give for these courses, I would wanted you to be able to create some kind of review paper or a little bit of knowledge knowledge sharing, that you maybe can make some paper based introduction about the IT, whether the method is new, or comparing those kind of method into a better method that you can use. Hopefully it can be published in the journal as well, and because that is one of the academics purposes, that we can show what we do as students in the university. And as a also last message, hopefully that these courses could become one of your greatest benefit in terms of knowledge, where you can try to implement it for the new things or even unordinary things that you can do. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all of your uh, appreciation to Handong, to UNICEF, and South Korea government as well, and to all of you for having this kind of uh, meetings, even though that we are only on digital manners. Thank you very much. I'm Rio Van Roring from Jakarta International University, Indonesia. Would say thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.